Well, welcome to Mihail, Jora, and the Romanians. Thank you very much for coming here today. It's a pretty good turnout. I appreciate it. So this workshop today will explore the predominant Romanian pedagogical repertoire in detail through a carefully considered order of least difficult to most difficult for each collection based on the leveling system of Dr. Jora. There will be 3 volumes of music explored today that include volumes of pedagogical repertoire by Mihail Jora, Dina Lipati, and a compilation album of respected contemporary Romanian composers. So to begin, let's have a look at Mihail Jora. This color scheme, by the way, is the Romanian flag, so it wasn't just to give you a stark contrast. So Mihail Jora, 1891 to 1971, is a predominant figure in the world of Romanian music and was a prolific composer, pianist, conductor, and teacher. With a reputation in Romania that rivals his contemporary, George Enescu, who you may have heard of, Jora composed 6 ballets, a symphony, a variety of orchestral, choral, vocal, and piano works. Among his piano works is a large collection of pedagogical pieces in 3 volumes in somewhat order of pedagogical study. The volumes increase in difficulty, generally speaking, and include the Piano Notebook for Talented Children. So here we have that. And at any point afterwards, too, if you'd like to actually look through the collection, you're welcome to do so. But the first one is the Piano Notebook for Talented Children. And then we have Piano Notebook of Domestic Scenes. And both of these comprise his Opus 25. And then we've got the Piano Notebook of School Scenes, which is his Opus 48. Now, these are the collections we'll explore by him today, specifically. Jora did, however, compose another set of works that could be used for the advanced student, and those are his 13 Preludes, Opus 42. They are worth mentioning, but we will not explore them as much today because they're all serious advanced works with diverse and complicated harmonies, rhythms, meters, and technical challenges despite their short length. I have one final note before I begin the music itself. I've ordered the difficulty of all 3 as a whole rather than 1, 2, 3. So just so you know, it's the whole book in order. So that means that some of the collections from the volume 2 are actually easier than the later collection or pieces in the first volume. So that's why I've done that. So without further ado, let's have a look at the music. So first is At the Mouth of the Stove, and as you can see, these are highly illustrated with little sort of rough but cute sort of illustrations. So At the Mouth of the Stove is a very picturesque piece that really does give the listener the feeling of sitting near a stove or fireplace on a quiet, dark night. The book illustration shows a little girl and a dog lying by the fire looking in. I just want to clarify, they're not in the oven, they're outside of the oven looking in. Just wanted to say that. The music itself in 2/4 is largely based on 2 voiced counterpoint, fairly simple though, but nevertheless possesses a legato and a serene quality despite its allegretto marking. In binary form, the first section features the melody in the right hand with a counter melody in the left here. And the roles are then reversed when the melody appears in the left hand with accessible double thirds in the right hand, suitable for an early intermediate to intermediate student. And I'm speaking of this, the melody's here, and then you get the thirds there. It is charming and expressive with unexpected harmonic turns that still remain aesthetically pleasing. Has a key center of A, but unexpectedly ends on a B minor sonority. Has a lot of modal tendencies with different tonal centers. So to start off, I will give you an idea of what these sound like. unexpected ending there. And so next we have what I've translated two different ways, but the first one is Memories of Katie's Cough. Din amintirele tuše Katinka. So Katinka is Katie. That was the closest thing I could come up with. But Memories of Katie's Cough is surely an interesting title and could possibly be interpreted as Katie's yammering. The illustration shows a little girl sitting on a stool listening to an old lady sitting in a chair. Despite the vague scene, what we have here is a lovely little waltz. However, it is not unlike a saraband, as it consistently emphasizes the second beat. The melody is simple and fairly commonplace, but the harmonies and dissonance occasionally shape the music in a very surprising and unexpected way that both intrigues and pleases the listener. I wish I could play them all for you, but we'd be here all day, so I am going to move on to the next one, and that is Thinking. Now, Pe in Romanian is on, Ginduri is thoughts, so I call it thinking. That's so on thoughts. Thinking can also be thought of as daydreaming or deep in thought. The illustration shows a boy lying in a flower field pondering. Here again we find a rather accurate depiction of the scene. The music is very curious and quickly gets ambiguous like a subconscious stream of thoughts. Technically accessible for the intermediate student. The syncopation across the bar line and in general is prevalent in this moderato in 2/4. A performance requires great expression and a rather open mind regarding the harmonic progression. This is an intermediate level piece capable of exposing a student to new possibilities of sound. It has a key center of A, Aeolian minor, but with quite a bit of chromaticism and other modes. This next one, the illustration, is one of my favorites. Isn't that cute? And I call that Passing Patrick's Army. So this is Passing the Army Louis Papuk. So Papuk is the name, so I just call him Patrick for our purposes. So Papuk's Army. And Passing Patrick's Army features 4 boys in paper hats playing soldier in the field. This is an excellent intermediate study of thirds for both hands. The melody begins in the right hand with stepwise thirds in the left, speaking right here. And then it reverses the roles line by line. So each line, you get the thirds in the right, the thirds in the left, the thirds in the right. The stepwise thirds, all with tenuto markings, really give the music a pompous march feeling like that of the military. Furthermore, the melody is very much characteristic of a trumpet or bugle call. The modal harmony will be unique but fun and engaging for the intermediate level student. It's a key center of G and it's mostly Lydian, and I would like to play this as you watch the little boys play. So the next one we have is Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale is light and majestic all in one. The melody is rather simple and stately, but gets enriched with some fairly sophisticated harmonies at times. The accompanying illustration is a boy reading a book with a castle and a horseman in the background. It struck my Game of Thrones need today, so anyway. The aura captured by the music is not unlike a knight traveling to the countryside to get to the noble castle. Jamie Lannister, excuse me. Nobody watches it. Never mind. The piece is marked allegretto in 4/4 and requires legato, long lines, and a sensitive touch, even when marked loud or with accents. Key center of D, Ionian major with some other modal tendencies. Next one is another funny little illustration here. The mutt pulls the kitty cat's tail, or mitz. I like the Romanian word, mustachi. The mutt pulls the kitty cat's tail and captures the playfulness of the dog and the distress of the cat all in one. The particular aspect that gives this effect is the bitonality present between the hands. Marked allegro jocoso and in 2/4, there is a lilting factor that is darkened by a rather sick-sounding clash of two different keys simultaneously. This is an excellent study in bitonality and analyzing ambiguous keys and harmonies for a late intermediate student. Not to mention, it's actually quite fun to play. It has a key center of F sharp / G flat. It actually switches between major and minor. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I want to give you a little taste of how that opens. Playful running back and forth, a few little bites here and there. So then we have in the corner, if you can't really see it well, but there's a little tear right there. In the corner features a poor sad puppy alone in the corner with nothing but his bone. The atmosphere created by the music is that of a docile regret that nevertheless shines hope that a time will come that he doesn't have to stay in the corner anymore. This piece, marked andantino and in 2/4, is an excellent study in finger independence and voicing for the late intermediate student. There's almost always exactly 4 independent voices happening at once, but in a way that is accessible for a late intermediate student to handle. So what I'm talking about is this held D in the bass. You have a tenor voice that's pretty much back and forth. Then you get the soprano, and then the soprano with an alto voice, and that's pretty consistent. And this, of course, is coupled with Jora's unique and surprising harmonic twists and turns in an otherwise tonal piece of music. It is sophisticated and aesthetically pleasing. It has a key center of D, major Ionian with some modal and chromatic tendencies. We then have the swing, and I have 3 personal top favorites from this whole collection, and In the Swing is one of them. The writing is sophisticated for an intermediate level, but is written in such a way that it is accessible. This piece in 2/4, and the B section is in 3/4, is in a very clearly defined ternary form. The writing, especially in the A section, is very pattern-based. It may look and sound difficult to a student at first, but making them aware of the patterns helps immensely. It's an excellent example of learning how to overcome what I call ink fright by analyzing patterns on the page, ink fright being overwhelmed by the actual ink on the page. Another gem present here is the contrast between sections. The A section is more sweeping, as demonstrated by the illustration of the little girl, or it looks like a little girl, swinging on a tree in a field. The second girl in the picture is sitting there dizzy by the tree, taking a break from swinging. There's little music notes flying around her head there. The B section truly encaptures this. It is more of an expressive chorale texture in 3/4 that incorporates double thirds and 2/3 polyrhythms. It has a key center of F sharp Aeolian, and I would like to play this for you. It is one of my top 3 favorites. I have to, right? B section. All right, so next we have Big Mouth, Tronca Flanca. Big Mouth also happens to belong to one of my top 3 personal favorites. The illustration is a riot, I think. 2 women are crocheting while yammering on and on, unaware that the children are playing behind their chairs. This piece in 2/4 in Marked Allegro Moderato is very much a study in perpetual motion for the late intermediate student. This is a piece that generally sounds more difficult than it is, and it is pattern-based. However, the B section of the piece changes the technical and harmonic patterns and requires a little bit of extra attention. It is very much like a typical toccatina, but with surprising twists and turns. The selection is incredibly charming and fun for the performer and the audience. I am going to play that. Maybe I should have said that after I played it, right? Well, hopefully it's charming too. So here's Big Mouth. So next we meet our little doggy friend again. Actually, I should pull that up because unfortunately the illustration couldn't fit on the page there. But it's just as cute as the rest, I think. There we go. Grover chases his tail. So Réveil, the name I thought Grover was appropriate. Grover Chases His Tail is not unlike a contemporary 2-voiced invention. The canon-like episodes most certainly reflect Grover seeing his tail when it is always out of reach. The piano writing technically is very much like Baroque and early classical, but with more modern harmonic surprises. It is imitative and in a very Bachian sense imitative. One unusual challenge, however, is the single bar of 3 against 4 right there. This would be a fine introduction to such a polyrhythm for a late intermediate student. The piece is marked vivo and mostly in 6/8, but switches briefly twice to 2/4. This is a fun and engaging selection. It has a key center of C with some Ionian and major tendencies. Then we have the Arrogant Mutt. Arrogant Mutt is the epitome of a capricious, almost sarcastic march in 4/4, not unlike Prokofiev, that is supplemented with an illustration of a dog dressed up in a tie with his bone in a bow. Aesthetically, this piece may be a bit harder to sell to a late intermediate student with a certain taste, but it is most certainly accessible for many and will introduce moments of bitonality, stark chromaticism, and surprising progressions that actually cause chuckling from the listener. At least it did me. When I heard it the first time, some of the progressions I went, that was my natural reaction. So, chromatic double thirds are prominent, particularly in the left hand, and a strict rhythmic accuracy is key to an effective performance. Has a key center of C, Ionian major, but with a lot of deviations from that. Then we have Mitz Mitz, or kitty cat. The kitty cat, or Mitz Mitz, can most certainly be felt stalking around the house with its cat-like mysterious ideas of mischief. The selling point for a late intermediate student would be an effective performance by the teacher. They will not understand the aesthetic joy unless they hear it before they learn it. With the lack of a main key signature, this is among the first quote-unquote atonal selections in the collection. Nevertheless, there are surely tonal moments, and the progression of events is very understandable. This could be a great introduction to less tonal music for a student that's not yet at the advanced level. There's no obvious key center. We then come to Family Party. Now, Family Party marks the final of my 3 top favorites in this collection personally. This is a waltz in 3/4, full of playful charm and musical sophistication, and it implies that the music be felt in one on the dotted half note equals 58. Unfortunately, my translation got in the way there a little bit, but it makes the student feel the music in one. This particular selection is rich with numerous musical concepts to be addressed by the teacher and student for the late intermediate to early advanced pupil. There are very unexpected harmonic progressions, passages with modal and whole tone tendencies, extended harmonies, and a need for a subtle touch for ultimate success. And of course, Mitz Mitz and the Mutt can be seen waltzing together in the illustration. Has a key center of F sharp Ionian major with a lot of modal tendencies and whole tone tendencies. And I do need to play that for you. I want to. And next we have the kitty cat's birthday, possibly translated as name day. That's an odd vocabulary word in Romanian. I'm not sure where to go with that, but perhaps rather appropriate for a kitty cat and her birthday comes the surprisingly complicated undertaking of pleasing a cat. Here again, a successful performance for a late intermediate to early advanced student will be the selling point. Up to tempo, the motives and direction is very clear. However, the selection in 4/4 is predominantly atonal with some whole tone tendencies. It is a great exercise in contrast, both dynamically and with regard to articulation. This may be especially appropriate for the student interested in theory and analysis. No obvious tonal center with whole tone tendencies. Now, forgive me for this one, because when I first heard this, there was one thing that I don't know, it came to my mind. Attentive in class, I said, is certainly an interesting designation. Perhaps attentive to an overflowing beaker in chemistry class while strongly under the influence of some sort of substance. I don't know, because it is very out there. I think my exact word was cannabis. Anyway, nevertheless, this very atonal but expressive piece would actually serve extremely well as an early precursor to playing the Berg Sonata, Opus 1 actually. The music is so expressive and fully atonal, but on a smaller scale as compared to the Berg. This piece is for a secondary college student in music theory or composition who is very proficient at piano. It could also be assigned to an undergraduate piano major as an introduction to purely atonal writing. There is definitely no key signature. I do want to give you just a small taste at the beginning so that you can hear what I'm talking about. Attentive in class. Sound there. Some of those figures is what reminded me of the Berg, actually. Now next we have Go Home. And I should, actually please don't, please stay. But I will show you the illustration again because it didn't fit on the page. Actually, it's another sad one with the mutt that I feel kind of bad for him. trying to follow somebody home. And they said, now go away, go home. So Go Home in 3/4 could easily be described as a toccatina, with one of its key challenges being fast repeated notes, requiring the alternation of fingers on a single note, scale passages, a few double thirds and fourths, and perpetual motion throughout. Although tonal, there is a lot of dissonance and chromaticism throughout. The rhythmic patterns of the melodic material are rather folk-like and not unlike Bartók. It has a key center of G, Ionian major, with modal tendencies and serious chromaticism. And we're getting near the end of this collection now. And the next one is In the Boat. In the Boat would be a very unique but effective introduction to truly atonal music for the advancing student. Technically accessible, expressive shaping and phrasing is crucial in addition to being able to being sure the student can clearly delineate what is actually melody and what is harmonic color. In the Boat is rather appropriate as one can picture a docile but uneven rocking of a canoe in a pond at dusk. Having mental imagery will be especially helpful for a student in learning this work. There is no key center and it is atonal. Difficult problem, and I said difficult problem indeed. This surely captures the aimlessly pondering quality of mulling over challenging work. This is a slow and expressive atonal piece in 4/4 that requires a great deal of shaping and special attention to individual voices in what is often a multi-voice texture. In my opinion, this is the most aesthetically captivating of the slow atonal works and would be great for advanced secondaries or undergraduate piano majors and minors. It is also interesting to note that perhaps the difficult problem is unexpectedly solved when the piece ends suddenly on a purely D-flat major chord out of the darkness. There is no key center, atonal, other than that last chord. We have the Farewell Waltz, level 10 plus now, if you haven't noticed. The Farewell Waltz is rhythmically and texturally traditional, like a waltz, but with a rather off-putting harmonic language. It begins such that one thinks it is fairly commonplace tonally, but we quickly lose sense of a key. With a series of engaging twists and turns, a rather clear form develops again, and does become apparent nonetheless as the motive returns and continues to develop. This is perhaps an atonal selection that is a bit easier to digest for an advancing student being introduced to atonalism. No obvious key center, though arguably atonal. So atonal, but with an A center. It's possible. We can talk about that after if you want. Whirlwind. Whirlwind is perhaps an excellent pairing to follow the Farewell Waltz. In 3/8, Whirlwind is like an aggravated version of a waltz and rather toccata-like in nature. Much like the Farewell Waltz, its atonality is a bit easier to comprehend than other selections, and also happens to have a questionable tonal center of A, as I just mentioned. It seems possible that Jora may have intended these two as a set. This piece requires finger independence and dexterity and must be thoughtfully phrased and paced for an effective performance. There's no obvious key center, although again, it could be atonal. We have two selections left of the Jora before we move on. And one is Quickly to School. Quickly to School is advanced atonal literature. Here we find another toccata-like piece requiring a well-developed technique and musical sophistication. It certainly conveys the frantic hurriedness one might have rushing to school and running late. My mother might tell you that's frequent for me. A well-prepared performance is actually quite effective, but this is not accessible to any student less than the advanced level. Possible applications could be secondary college students in music theory or composition whose main instrument is piano and are well-equipped players. This piece could be paired with other short preludes or etudes to make a set. It could also be given to an undergraduate piano major who has played little 20th century music but requires a shorter work for whatever the context may be. It can also be effectively paired with other advanced selections from this set. And in the next description, I will give you my opinion of what can be paired well. There's no obvious key center. And lastly, for this set, we have At Recess. At Recess is one of the most advanced, if not the most advanced, pieces in the collection. Another atonal and toccata-like work, the piece can be very effective in the right hands. A possibly good 20th century set of atonal but effective music for a piano major could be as follows. Difficult Problem, which is on your handout we've talked about, Quickly to School, Attentive in Class, and At Recess. This is a familiar slow, fast combination that contrasts these very harmonically similar pieces. There's no key center to At Recess, but it is rather comical and unexpectedly ends on a purely E minor chord. So this concludes the Mihail Jora segment, which now brings me to a very unique collection, much different and much less advanced than these last pieces we've seen. And that is the compositions of Little Dinu by Dinu Lipati. Dinu Lipati, 1917 to 1950, was a Romanian pianist, composer, and teacher who was a child prodigy to a comparable level as that of Mozart. Though most people only know him for his legendary career as a concert pianist and recording artist, he was also an accomplished composer and studied with giants such as our new friend Mihail Jora, Nadia Boulanger, and Paul Dukas. Among his compositional output is a set of 8 pieces written between the ages of, are you ready for this? 3 and 5. Much like the childhood compositions of Mozart, these pieces are accessible and charming for children, both musically and technically. And so I just wanted to show you, he's probably 2 or 3 at this time. He is 4 years old in this picture with George Enescu, and he's probably 5 or 6 at this time. So I wanted to give you a little range of what he looked like when he was so vigorously composing. And so the compositions of Little Dinu, which is B1, B being the catalog number of the main Lipati scholar, which is Grigore Baruanu. He's still living, actually. He's about 80 years old, and he even emailed me back about some of this, which was kind of neat. And so, being his first composition, it is B1. And again, I've ordered the pieces based on their progressive level of difficulty rather than the order they are in the book itself. So let's check them out. Oh, that was a mistake. That's what I just told you. Let's check them out. So, Song for Granny is a darling little piece for Grandma. This is a simple binary work to be repeated. The elementary student will have both the opportunity to adjust from 3/4 to 2/4 and to a significant tempo change. The texture is also rather hymn-like, but it is simple and repetitive enough for a late elementary student. Granny will love it. Key center of F major. And I did want to clarify something as well. These 8 pieces he played regularly, and a family friend notated what he played over and over again. So he had them written in his head, and he played them over, and somebody notated for him. So I did want to clarify that. He wasn't sitting there with a pencil so meticulous.
And this is between 3 or 5, this one?
Between 3 and 5, all of these actually.
All of these, okay.
This whole collection. So then we've got Spring, Primavera, composed in May of 1922 by the 5-year-old Dinu Lipati. This piece is really more of a serious spring in mood with a consistent, slow D minor throughout. Technically and harmonically simple, the piece is an excellent introduction to meter changes for the late elementary student. The piece begins in 3/4, changes to 2/4, and returns to 3/4 near the end. There are also rests with fermatas, providing young students the opportunity to wait and to be comfortable with silence. As a key center of D minor. Not key center, it is in the key of D minor. I was used to saying Jora, who doesn't have keys. We then have Sad Separation, with its slow triplet arpeggiations between the hands. This expressive piece in binary form has some unique hidden challenges for the elementary student. The first is the occasional alternating meter of 2/4 to 3/4 and back throughout the whole piece. Secondly, the need to switch between a triplet melody and an 8th note melody, or a triplet subdivision and a 16th subdivision is present. This is an excellent exercise for the elementary student to establish these relationships and execute them accurately. It's in the key of E minor. We then have regrets, because 3-year-olds have so many regrets. Especially interesting about this piece, it was composed by Dino Lopati at the age of 3. So that is why I said that. This one in particular is him at 3. The piece is subtitled with the quote, "Mamei," essentially translating to mommy. So perhaps the little Dinu behaved poorly to his mother or missed his mother to cause him regrets at the age of 3. This is a very small binary piece. Part A is in 6 measures, part B is 5, with a written out repeat. And quite frankly, it may have just been to fill the page, honestly, by the publisher. Could be. Although the harmony is simple, the broken chord accompaniment varies in versions, and the melody includes grace notes. This could be a fine example of grace note playing at the elementary level, and an opportunity to analyze inversions with a young student, and it has a key of D minor. Next, we have what I think is the most accurate way to translate this, the Scallywag March. It's easier to say than Marshal Strengalilor. Excuse me. A charming and cute 2/4 march throughout. This piece is in a clear ternary form that can be recognized by the late elementary and early intermediate piano student. There is also an opportunity to discuss relative major and minor keys, as the B section is in the relative minor. It's in the key of G major overall. We then have Sweet Memory, and I will play this one for you, because in the context of the rest of the collection, this piece with 6 flats is conducive to a multi-key approach. Lopati's young writing style remains very much the same with the exception of the key signature. In a clear binary form, the work begins with a very expressive A section in Andante E flat minor in 2/4, with an odd affinity for Chopin, which he would be known for playing later, and ends with the B section in the parallel major, more in the style of Bartók's Four Children, with its specific articulations and meter changes. This is a useful exercise in an unfamiliar key signature for the late elementary and early intermediate student that also incorporates tempo, meter, and articulation changes. So let's hear a little bit of Little Dinu. Sweet Memory. Did I say he was 5? Next, we have Doralina as the longest piece in the set, with solemnity, intensity, and joy all in one. Doralina must have been quite the schoolyard crush. This is in 3-part form in 2/4 and could be seen as a loose set of variations. Although fairly simple in harmony and technique, there are a few brief instances of double thirds and double sixths that provide an accessible introduction for the early intermediate student. The contrast of moods is also noteworthy. It's in the key of D minor, possibly F major, depending on how you look at it. And I'll play that one for you too. We will honor Jora. I have translated this generally to good old Transylvania, but literally this piece is translated as my good Sărcea. Sărcea is a town in Transylvania, and since this is in the United States, in the middle of the United States, I assume nobody knows where or what Sărcea is, so I generalize the title to good old Transylvania to communicate the meaning better. So here again we find a ternary form that incorporates the relative minor key in the B section. This is an upbeat ditty that uses broken chord accompaniment in roots and inversions, brief meter changes from the original 2/4 and back again, and grace notes. It is a delightful little piece in the key of F major. So it's my opinion, I don't need to go there yet, it's my opinion that the benefit of these pieces pedagogically are much like the childhood pieces of Mozart. You may or may not disagree after hearing some of them, but they are written by a child, and therefore they will be more likely to fit in a child's hands and appeal to the creative process of a child. So this concludes the childhood compositions of Dino Lipati. So now for the last section of this workshop, I would like to explore the Bucharest-based Grapho Art Publishing Company's collection compilation of Romanian composers' teaching pieces. The composers include Philip Lazar, Mihail Jora, Marce Negrea, Sabin Dragoi, Paul Constantinescu, Diamande Geciu, Anatol Vieru, Hilda Jarea, and Nicolae Schilf. The collection is diverse and contains wildly attractive music for the late intermediate to early advanced student. And this is what it looks like. Again, afterwards, if you'd like to have a closer look, you're welcome to, if there's anything that you didn't get a chance to see enough. So Philip Lazar is first on our list in order of difficulty. He was born in 1894 and died in 1936. He was born in Craiova and died in Paris. He studied piano at the Bucharest Conservatory. Lazar has composed numerous works for theater in addition to symphonic, chamber, vocal, choral, and piano music. Romanian dance is as charming and folk-like as it gets. There are constant syncopations, meter changes, and other rhythmic irregularities with tempo changes that give the music a very improvisatory and organic feel. The need for careful distinction between the numerous articulations is very akin to Bartók and would pair rather well with selections from his Four Children set. The writing is very dance-like and requires several instances of hand crossing at a close proximity. So what I mean is it's like this. It's hard for me because my hands are lanky, but highly recommended piece for the intermediate to late intermediate student. Has a key center of C. It's predominantly Mixolydian in sound with several other modal tendencies. So I will play this one for you. Philip Lazar. Next we have Takatina. I like his hair. Paul Constantinescu, 1909 to 1963, completed his music studies in Bucharest, where he studied harmony, composition, and counterpoint with guess. Mihail Jora. Okay. I thought that'd be more. Okay. Constantinescu was active as a violinist, composer, conductor, and professor. He composed theater, symphonic, vocal symphonic, chamber, piano, and choral music, as well as the soundtrack of a film in Romania. Choral music. He composed choral music. Takatina in 6/8 is surely a showpiece in every right and will be exciting for both the performer and the audience. Technically, a performance requires rapid alternation between the hands on repeated notes with accents and specific pedaling indications, including flutter pedal. And after the workshop, if you'd like to see how they write that, you're welcome to see the book. The main motivic material is found in several chromatic key areas, and the 6/8 briefly switches to 2/4 for a time. The elements of coordination present could serve as an early precursor to the Cacciatorian toccata. It's a very effective piece and has a key center of D. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I want to give you just a slight flavor of it, and then I'll also show you specifically where it made me think of Cacciatorian. So, Takatina. Interesting little progression, but the part that gets me with Cacciatorian is and that comes later, and it's very much characteristic of that the part that he has in his staccato. Next we've got the jalopy, as I could best translate it. Hodorwada, again, jalopy is easier to say. Sabin Dragoi, 1894 to 1968, completed his music studies in Cluj, Iași, both of which are in Romania, and Prague, that's not Romania, becoming one of the most important Romanian folklorist musicians in the 20th century. He was a professor of harmony, counterpoint, and composition at the Conservatory of Timișoara in Romania, and in 1940s became the director of the same institution and the Timișoara Opera. And actually, I've been to the Timișoara Opera House, so that was a neat little connection. Dragoi composed works, many works, including symphonic works, piano pieces, and miniatures, and film music. The jalopy, as it is best translated, is a delightful folk-style dance in 5/8 that could easily be said to imitate an old jalopy with wobbly wheels via the irregular meter. Here again, we find very specific articulation marks that must be clearly defined for the most effective performance. The pedaling is also very specific and should be executed precisely for full intended effect. This is an excellent exercise in irregular meter for the late intermediate and early advanced student. It is fun, fresh, engaging, and exciting for the performer and listener. Has a key center of D, Aeolian minor with some modal tendencies. I'm just going to give you another sample because these pieces start to get longer, although I wish I could play all of them. Throughout quite a bit, but he develops them harmonically and changes some texture too. So now we have the spinning top. Anatol Vieru, 1926 to 1998, studied at the Bucharest Conservatory, where he specialized in musicology and composition under Paul Constantinescu, who we just saw his toccata. There's a big lineage there. He later became a professor there. Vieru composed over 100 works, most He composed over 100 works of most musical genres, including 6 symphonies, 8 string quartets, choral pieces, chamber music, and operas after Romanian and foreign composers' music. He has also written numerous works on musicology and music theory. The spinning top is a perpetual motion exercise with a constant back and forth half-step figure that alternates between 8th notes, triplets, and 16ths, although predominantly 16ths, and also frequently switches meter, which forces a hemiola effect at times. At the very least, the student must think in terms of the hemiolas that are occurring. The style is a bit minimalistic and dissonant and possesses the challenge of very syncopated left hand that will require slow practice and counting. The work is a dizzying and effective toccata-like piece for the late intermediate to early advanced student. Possible key center of D, but it's not clearly defined. There's a lot of chromaticism. We then have Hop the Fence by Marcin Negrea. He was born in 1893 and died in 1973. He completed his studies in Sibiu, which is in Romania, and Vienna, and became professor of music theory and chamber music at the Conservatory of Cluj and then Bucharest, both in Romania. He composed chamber music, symphonic music, vocal symphonic music, opera, film music, and a whole series of piano works such as miniatures, sketches, sonatinas, and solo piano sonatas. Hop the Fence has a compositional strategy not unlike Bartók's Evening in the Country in the way that it presents an expressive and cantabile first section that is followed by a more excited dance-like section, and then recapitulated with a more impassioned version of the first material. Although very accessible technically for the late intermediate student, the most difficult challenge is the rhythm, especially in the faster B section. Because of equal mix of 8th, 16th, and 32nd notes with much syncopation, coordination can be a formidable challenge at first. And once the groove is felt, however, the execution becomes much easier. There are also some multi-voiced textures at the end, but they should be easy to conceptualize with the help of the teacher. Engaging writing in the key of A, Aeolian and Dorian tendencies. I will play this for you. Next we have the music box. That's by Diamandi Geciu, 1892 to 1982. I had to practice saying those dates so much because they're the same numbers. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got it right. Attended law school, but completed his musical studies and then took courses at the Romanian Union of Composers. From 1915 to 1980, he composed many symphonic, choral, vocal, and chamber music works in addition to writing musicological treatises. The music box definitely suits its title with a predominantly high register and light dance-like feel. In 6/8 and marked allegretto, there are double thirds and fourth grace notes at the beginning, as well as imitative counterpoint with the added challenge of specific articulations. There are also very specific pedal markings, trills, and frequent poco ritardandi. Musically, this is perhaps the most traditional of the entire workshop, with few or no modal tendencies and very little chromaticism. At times it actually feels like it could be Handel, and at other times it could be a Strauss waltz. A sparkling and darling piece, this is excellent alternative repertoire for the early advanced student, key center of E-flat major. We then have Blind Man's Buff from the Suite for Children, and this is by Nikolai Schilf, 1905 to 1985. Poor guy, I don't think he liked cameras. I couldn't find a picture of him anywhere. I searched and I searched. And he lived to be 80 in the 1985, I don't know. But he initially began his studies in his hometown and later completed them in several specialized institutions in Europe. Starting in the 1920s, he was a music professor for around 20 years. Schilf composed dozens of works for theater, vocal, choral, symphonic, chamber, and instrumental music from the early 1920s to 1980s. His piano compositions are primarily aimed at students and include the Rustic Suite for piano, the Four Seasons, Pieces for Children, 6 Pieces for Children, 6 Bagatelles for Children, 3 Pieces, and 10 piano miniatures. Blind Man's Buff is a light and bubbly piece full of energy, but it should not be underestimated in difficulty. There is a wide range of dynamic contrasts, sudden and unexpected chromatic key changes, tempo and character changes, texture changes, numerous articulations, and expressive markings, specific pedal indications, and changes in register. In 4/4 and in ternary form, this piece is an excellent exercise in contrast and subtlety for the early advanced student, key of B-flat major. And with only 2 left in the collection, we come to the only female composer. And actually, I'll get to more of that in just a second. So Playfulness from the cycle Mountain Camp. This is by Hilda Jora, and she was born in 1916, died in 1980. And she studied music and piano under, we'll try again, Mihail Jora, yeah, and Florica Musicescu at the Bucharest Conservatory. Now, I want to just say one thing about Florica Musicescu. First of all, her last name is Musicescu, music, anyway. Dino Lopati studied with her, and that is also when he won the Vienna International Piano Competition while studying with her. So these are some pretty influential people. So Hilda Jora completed her studies in Paris and Budapest, not to be confused with Bucharest, Budapest, Hungary, and was part of various ensembles and performed numerous concerts as a soloist after returning to Romania. In Bucharest, she founded the New Chamber Music Group in 1966. Jora has composed numerous chamber, choral, and symphonic works as well as ballet music. She is known as the only female composer in Romania of her generation. I'm certain there are others, but that's how she's considered. Playfulness is exactly what the music suggests and is a lively, multi-voice texture with frequently changing meters that gives the piece a very surprising and playful feeling. Again, we find very specific articulation distinctions such as staccatos, accents, staccatos with accents, tenutos and slurs, and specific pedal indications. The music is incredibly exciting and engaging for both the performer and the listener, and it can serve as an effective opener or closer to a recital program for a student. It is one of the most challenging but most rewarding pieces of the set, has a key center of A Ionian major with some modal tendencies. I will play this my last example for you here. I just said it was one of the most challenging. I'm sure I want to do this. Okay. Too late. Here we go. And so, lastly, we come back around full circle with a prelude by our now good friend Mihail Jora. This is a prelude number 8 from Jora's 13 preludes of his 42 that I mentioned at the beginning, and is included in this compilation set, likely due to its accessibility and aesthetic value. Although very ambiguous tonally, the music is very much based in patterns and recurring figures and make the overall distinction quite clear, or direction quite clear, excuse me. This is a good study in melodic voicing over top a faster accompaniment figure, there's Mihail, over a faster accompaniment figure as well as modality and atonalism. It is appropriate for an advancing student, and it has a key center of D flat, but it is ambiguous tonally. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time to attend this workshop today, and I hope that it's provided you with a wealth of knowledge and new perspectives on the largely underappreciated music and composers of Romania. And although this has been a seminar on pedagogical music, there is a lavish wealth of standard Romanian compositions of all types in existence, so I would encourage everyone to explore. Thank you very much.